Welcome to Disney Hers, the show about what's happening in the Disney community from his, hers, and your perspective. I'm Lauren.
And I'm Eric, and on today's show, we dig into some numbers to see if the Disney community actually enjoys Trip Report podcasts. And of course, we follow up with a little Trip Report of our own.
Yes, but before we get started, we want to remind you that Disney Hers can be found on all your favorite podcast platforms and also in video format on Spotify and YouTube. We'd love it if you could head over to Apple, give us a quick rating and review, and let us know what you want to hear us talk about on an upcoming episode.
Okay, Lauren, so we just came back from a little trip down to Central Florida, and on our ways to and fro, we typically listen to some Disney podcasts, and this is not anything new. I've been listening to Disney podcasts probably for the last 10, 15 years since we started kind of getting in. And over that time frame, I've sampled maybe 100 different Disney podcasts, and I kind of gravitated towards a few. At this point in time, I think I might have like 10 in my rotation.
There are
Most
100 Disney podcasts.
Oh, there's more than 100. There's so many. I remember in 2013, 14, when I was originally finding the podcast, you just type in Disney and Apple, and there was just tons and tons. And they're all shapes and sizes and all types of varieties. I have found myself typically, anybody that knows me, I'm more into the history one. So I enjoy the history podcast. I enjoy some news, if it keeps it relevant and has this interesting take on it. And then there are still some that I have that are like trip planning-esque, like, hey, do this. Over the years, those have kind of fallen off because once you've gone so many times, you only need to know so much, like trip planning and so forth. But how long you've said we've been working with Jim and the Jim Hill Media Network? 4 or 5 years,
I mean,
maybe?
yeah, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. So during that time, I've helped produce. You and I both been really on the back end helping produce maybe hundreds of episodes. And out of those, maybe 1 or 2 have turned out to be like trip reports, right?
My favorites.
Yeah. But the thing is, it's not like Len does trip reports. Jim certainly doesn't go and tell us about his trips. I don't think Drew, maybe Dan. I think you and I are probably the most that we have done semi trip report things. So it's kind of had me wondering because you and I had this discussion in the car this way on the way home because we sampled a couple. We won't name names. Some of those weren't so great. And the other one was like we were chuckling and happy to hear about their trips. And it just turns out that I am naturally not a huge Trip Report podcast listener. And I'm like, I can't be alone. No one likes these things, right? But you and your mom were kind of like evangelizing. So what is your thoughts on general Trip Report podcasts?
Okay, so I don't need to know every step that you made. And, I'm an optimization person. I like to, spend my time wisely. And I like to get some value. So when we talk a little bit about our trip later in the show, that's what I like to focus on is things you may have not known or things that could add value to a trip, make it easier, save time, save money, more comfortable, those kinds of things. But over on the Epic Universal podcast, you and Jim had Chris Cox as a guest, and he's the co-host on The Case For with Chris Cox and Jim and Len. And he was talking about his recent trip to Disney Universal Epic. And because of his little tip, we were able to stay at the Helia. So if I wasn't listening to Chris's trip report, which was one of my favorite podcasts, that you've done, then we wouldn't have gotten to have that wonderful experience. So
Yeah.
yay, trip report.
Yeah. Well, I think what happens is I was actually surprised because when obviously the premise of the Epic Universal podcast for the first year, and so I got to go down there was like, hey, can you convince a Disney diehard to become a Universal fan? And finally I went there. And when we came back, I was surprised by how many people were like, hey, did you guys do a trip report? Like, we want to hear like what you did. Of course, I came back and gave my opinions on stuff, but it was not a step-by-step. But there were a lot of people that request that. And I was just kind of shocked. Now, on the other hand, I do enjoy watching YouTubers. Like, I like watching YouTubers go and witness and see the stuff. But I feel like it's a little different than, hey, here's my trip and here's what we did A to Z. So they are slightly different. So I went out there and I was trying to quantify. My thing is like, all right, or do people actually listen to these? Is it a small niche or is it a larger niche? So there's not really, of course, you're not going to find anybody out there that is asking the same question. That is unique to the Disney Hers. We're asking the nerdy, dumb questions of what the community actually did. But I did find one where somebody just says Trip Report Podcast. Basically the title. I'm looking for podcasts that focuses on and includes a lot of trip reports. I love WDW Prep to Go and have found a few good episodes on Addicted to the Mouse. Any other recommendations? So I could have probably left. This was a year ago. I probably could have left some. Now, Lauren, you don't listen to Disney podcasts much at all. Like you might,
No, I love the Disney Dish. I
yeah,
like, some news, I like the trip report stuff, but I'm more of, like, a video
yeah. I'm the
person, I would say, to
podcaster.
get my
So
info yeah.
So the Princess of Wales said, "Be Our Guest podcast does a trip report every Monday," and that was one of my early regulars. Mike
Yes, I remember
Rallman
that.
and Ricky, and I think her name was Pam. They did 3 a week, and we met them at Disney Indie Meet. Lovely people, and they did a Monday podcast. So mentioned earlier, WDW Prep School. She was on my list. But over time, you kind of like hear the same things when it's a Q&A and a trip report and stuff like that. I'm like, I got this kind of down. I just want to hear nerdy stuff. So I kind of let them kind of lapse in a bit, but I did give them a recent try because I'm like, all right, let's go back and see how things have tried. I noticed that before WDW Prep School used to be like, here's 5 things you need to do kind of. They're now literally all trip reports. The last one I tried to listen to was 3 hours long. And it was so,
Who
and I'm
has
like,
3 hours? I'm just wondering to, like,
no,
listen to a trip report.
well,
I need bullet points, cliff notes.
Well, that was funny to me, and I'm like, "Oh, man," and it's all trip report stuff now, but it is so I'm like, does her listener up, down, where are we at with stuff?
I
There were a
know
couple
it
other people that threw out there that double your WDW, the Disney World Planning Podcast, has a lot of good trip reports. And then someone
okay.
also said, Hello Magic is the best. She is honest about advice, taking kids, families. She also interviews other Disney creators. So I'm like, okay, so we have a list here. We have some that are there. Now, I wanted to find out if there was a way to actually quantify and see if these podcasts are popular. Lauren, you know how difficult podcast tracking is, right?
Oh my gosh, it's the hardest because you can have, like, 100,000s or hundreds of thousands of downloads per episode, and nobody even knows that it exists because it's not like social media where you can see likes and comments and engagements and that kind of thing, so it's very difficult.
Right. So I went online. There was one we talked about on a previous episode. I think it was Rentronic is a tool that kind of gives you estimated data, but no one tells you anything. There's no data coming from Apple or Spotify, kind of. YouTube is your best indicator, but if like that's not your platform, like if you went to our YouTube and looked at it and say, well, they're not getting many listens. Well, that's not what the back end real data says. So it's not 100% accurate. So I did find one that was called Listen Notes. Have you ever heard of this one before? Listen
No.
Notes? Yeah, so
Mm.
Listen Notes is a tool that I found kind of interesting because it kind of creates a score for your actual podcast. So there's a listen score, and then it also gives you the global ranking of where you rank in the percentage. So of course, I go on there and I start searching for some of our stuff. And to know what listen score is a metric that shows the estimated popularity of the podcast compared to other podcasts that are out on an RSS feed. So it's a 0 to 100 scale. The more popular, the higher the number. Okay. And then there's a global rank. Now, this is fun because the global rank has 3,790,000 podcasts that it's ranking.
Oh
So
my
it gives you your
gosh.
global rank. So I've wanted to figure out how they calculate this. So it is similar. They said this is from their website, according to Listen Notes. They calculate it by using a mathematical model based on a mix of first party signals. So things they observe themselves, searches on Listen Notes, clicks, saves, playlist activity, and other engagement on the platform, which is nice. But third party signals is probably very important. That's media mentions, reviews, and other publicly available indicators of popularity. So very familiar to you as Nielsen TV ratings. And we
Mhm.
all kind of know how credit scores work. And I'm a nerd, so I know domain authority when it comes to websites. So it's more similar to that. So I figured we'd pull up a couple that we know very well. And then we'll also pull up the ones that came out that were listed as your trip reports, and we'll see how they compare. So, for those not aware, Jim Hill Media Podcast Network is the feed out there that has all of the Jim Hill Media podcasts. It is the feed that shows the Diz and Hers, it has Epic, it has the Disney Dish, so forth. Listen score of a 57 out of 100. That's pretty darn good in all comparison,
Yeah.
right? And it is in the top 0.5% globally. Pretty darn good, wouldn't you say?
Wait, does that mean they're in the top like, as far as listens go, they're in the top, like
Point
1% of
5,
all.
even better, right? It's top
That is
0.5%.
insane. Good on you, Jim Hill Media Network
Yeah,
and the
so
Disney Dish.
yeah, so well, the Disney Dish is a separate one because if you think about it,
Oh.
that you can just if you're only a Disney Dish fan, so like Lauren, for instance, who's not even listening to her own husband's podcast, she's
Sorry.
listened to Jim and Len, which is the flagship. We know that they
Yeah.
have their own feed, and that is a 55 listener score, and it's also in the top 0.5. So we're so both
Wow.
just the Jim Hill and Len fans versus the people that love all the podcasts, both are doing well. So we, of course, brand new to the gate. We have Diz and Hers. Our listen score is a 24, so we're working on it, and we're in the top 10% of global rank. So
Holy mackerel, we're in the top 10% of podcasts?
there we are. So that is
Huh.
now granted, we have 3,700,000 podcasts. So this is a fun little tool that I was playing with. So let's see how the other ones fare, better or
Okay.
worse. All right, so WDW Prep to Go, and mind you, the Disney World Planning Podcast, been around forever, has a listener score of a 59. So
Okay.
right now, top dog, top 0.1%. So this podcast is
What?
super popular and has continued to be super popular, even with the 3-hour trip reports. So I think people listen to trip reports.
Yeah.
Be Our Guest podcast, also an old one. Listen score even higher than, in many aspects, 58 with a 0.5%. So once again, longevity, and these are their scores, proprietary scores for listen notes. It doesn't talk about
Uh-huh.
downloads. It talks about what they view as a popular and a reputable source here. So Your WDW, which I've never heard of. It is a listen score 44. I have not tried this one. I might try it. It's looks like the host's name is Julie, and she's in the top 1%. So
Good for her.
so
Go,
people are
Julie.
listening to that. And then Well Hello Magic is a listen score of 34 in the top 3%. So we don't have download data, but it sure looks like that people actually do enjoy those Trip Report podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I always say I'm America. Like, if you want to know how the collective is feeling, like I feel like I can speak for the people. And I think they're with me on this one.
Yeah,
Team Trip Report.
you have similar trends as the mass majority. Let's just put it that way. You don't represent all America. You don't say
No,
you're
I
America.
do not.
You just tend to like the things that most of the Americans like. And I am more of a
Yes.
niche guy, so of course I'm
Yes.
going to be liking a lot of these other podcasts. So this is interesting. I just want to let everybody out there. You're listening to a podcast. You like podcasts, obviously. If you're interested in nerdy stuff, go to Listen Notes, and you can do so many of these for free. I think you can get a paid version, this, that, so forth. But also, you head over to Diz and Hers. I think there's reviews, there's listen stuff, and if they're gauging by clicks, you can make us jump up real quick. So, but let us know. The question I really have, truth be told, is we kind of have our hands in the back end of Jim Hill Media. We can talk to Jim and do you guys want to hear a trip? Like, would you be interested in like an actual weekly or monthly trip report podcast on the network? Like, we could interview lots of people and talk about trips. Is that something that you'd be interested in? This is something you have to let us know. So if you want something like this, head over and message
Yeah,
us.
well,
Let us
yeah,
know.
yeah, Eric at erichersey.com. I'm at Lauren@laurenhersey.com. For reals, let us know.
Okay. But when we get back, we're going to take a break and we're going to give you a little trip report of our own. We promise it won't be too long. But we did do a nice little vacation to Vero Beach. We stayed at the Contemporary Bay Lake for the first time. We were in Walt Disney World and Universal in the midst of summer, and we have our thoughts. So we'll be right back after this. And we are back. We were just talking about it. People listen to Trip Report, so we hope all of you made it through this break to listen to our Trip Report. But I'm going to let Lauren, she's the Trip Reporter. Lauren, give us a breakdown of what the heck we did, and we don't necessarily go chronologically, and you don't need to know exactly where we ate every single morning for
Oh,
breakfast, but there's
no,
some highs and lows.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring up Vero Beach because that's where we started our trip. And a lot of people don't know that Disney does have two beach resorts on the East Coast. So Vero Beach is about 90 minutes south of Orlando. I guess like south, what would that be? East, I guess.
Southeast, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're heading, I guess, north from Orlando, about 5 hours, you're going to get to the Hilton Head Resort. And we've stayed at both of those Disney properties. Hilton Head is extremely tough to get into, but Vero seems to be a little bit easier. And it's really nice to go to Vero, if it would make sense mid trip because your body is just beat up from 20,000 steps a day. But the timing just didn't work out that we could do it that way. So we went there first. And you hate the beach,
I
right?
despise the beach. I am a very fair individual who burns at that looking at the sun. I often say I'm allergic to the sun. I'll look at it, I will sneeze, people laugh at me. Like, I can handle it now because we've done so many Florida vacations that I don't need to literally lube up every single moment of the day. But yeah, I'm not a beach guy. I don't, obviously terrified of the movie Jaws as a kid, so I don't like going in and not being able to see my feet or what's about. So I'm not a beach guy at all. Yet I absolutely love Vero Beach. Like, absolutely. I mean, dare I say it's one of my favorite places to go.
Which is so bizarre to me because I love the beach. And at one point in our marriage years ago, Eric was like, if you love the beach, like you just need to go with a friend, which I do. But so to hear him say that Vero is one of his favorite places to be, it's a little mind blowing. But like, why do you love it?
Number one, beaches are gross in many aspects. I don't like anything about other beaches. There are people that walk by, they're smoking, they're playing their loud music. It's just, you don't have any privacy. Like, it's always just everywhere. It's very inconsistent. Normally, you got to walk like a mile to get to a place. And with Vera, on the other hand, it is officially the Disney bubble. You are in the Disney bubble. You have cast members named Muriel that's pretty much everywhere.
Oh my
That is
gosh.
that is essentially helping you feel like it's like Disney. It's just the same atmosphere. It seems like it has the same theming and the smells. But for this perspective, the beach and the pool are very close to each other, right? You walk out and there is the pool environment that looks like a Disney pool. And that is where I would like to hang out. But you just walk a little bit and want like a little bridge and down, and there's the beach. And there is none of that. So for someone like you guys who want to go hang out at the beach, and I'm like, I'll meet you at the pool, I don't have to trek forever. I don't have to go anywhere. So I find that super convenient for someone like myself who would hang out under an umbrella at the pool and just listen to podcasts, listen to music, do whatever the heck I want to do, and enjoy some of the sun and relaxation, but also not be super far. Because I'd come and check on and just make sure everybody's cool and everything like that. So it's easy to jump back and forth, and it's still within a Disney bubble per se.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, the rooms are very similar to what would you get at, like, Beach Club,
Sure.
but it's just charming, and we spend a lot of time on this podcast talking about, the things that Disney has taken away that we're still, bitter about, but a couple little magical extras here that I really love is, Miles, our youngest, is 9, and he's still and our oldest too, also likes to make sandcastles and stuff, but you don't wanna have to schlep that stuff down to the beach every time or buy it just for that occasion. So they have all the beach toys and stuff that you can use for free. We were running some boogie boards, like 10 bucks, so very, very affordable. And I love their cast members. I mean, I just love cast members and have so much respect for these people creating magic day in and day out. But they do these really amazing campfires and, the songs around the campfires. Like you feel like you're at summer camp and they have all kinds of games and DJs and stuff at the pools. So to really keep you busy and entertained. As far as like any downsides of Vero, like Eric said about Muriel, we love some Muriels at Wind and Waves. That is their sit down dining.
Give them the tell them what's up. There are
Okay, I'll
three
have
of
to tell
them.
you
There are
about the.
three employees named Muriel that are all like
Yes,
servers at that place. And it's
yes.
just super
So
fun. I've never met a Muriel in my life. And then we
I
met
have
like
never met
two.
a Muriel, and there were 3 Muriels. There were 4, and one I think retired. But our server came over and introduced herself as Muriel, and she's like, "Actually, I'm not going to be your server. I'll get your drinks, but your server's going to be Muriel." And so the lady comes over, and I'm like, "Is your name really Muriel?" Like, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I swear my name is Muriel." And so then she says she's been there for 20 years and she came from like New Jersey or something and ran into somebody when she moved down there who was the manager there. And her name was Muriel. And she recruited this Muriel. And so then the funniest part about it was years later, she's working there, and there's the 3 Muriels, and they said, "We're gonna be getting a new employee." And this lady, I kid you not, her name was Muriel, and she was from the exact same town in New Jersey as our server.
Yeah. So, I mean, if your name is Muriel, you're obviously out of calling for Vero Beach. So head there now and start helping people. Yeah, but Vero is great in a sense that it's good for a couple days. I could probably do more. Literally, it's the only place that I kind of find myself relaxing. It's not theme park, but it is Disney Bubble. So if you're one that likes to go to a resort and have resort days, this is perfect. And it's not too far
Yes.
away. And I think everything was fun and reasonable. They have your pin trading, they have video games. I believe they had like 9 Nintendo Switches in the one room. There's a
Oh,
puzzle
yeah.
room. There's
A
cornhole. I think you could do
spa.
yoga. Well, they had, if you want to wake up early enough, they even had somebody from the animal kingdom come at like 7 a.m. in the
Yeah,
morning
to
and
talk about
talk
the sea
about the
turtles.
turtles. So there was all types of stuff. So we highly like endorse Vero. And we've also
Yes.
been to Hilton Head, which is the other one on the East Coast, and endorse that as well. But it's so difficult to get into, but has a lot of the similarities and so forth. But dare I say, we're going to break a little rules here and we're going to take another ad break real quick. When we get back, we're going to talk about the contemporary and we're going to talk about summer at Walt Disney World and Universal and if the crowds were high or low. But after this break, we'll talk about that.
So now moving on to a resort that almost everybody knows about, and that is the Contemporary. We got to stay at the Contemporary Bay Lake Tower first time ever. And if you've listened to us talk on other podcasts, we've stayed at almost every single Disney resort. And to be totally honest, the reason we have not stayed at the Contemporary is I like a spacious room. And the contemporary rooms at Bay Lake are the smallest in the DVC family. And they're really made for 4 people. We're a family of 5. On this trip, we had Gogo, my mother, and so she and Hunter, my oldest, stayed at the All Stars, and we were at the Contemporary, and I was pleasantly surprised. I really loved everything about it, Eric, and I know that you had similar feelings. Do you want to talk about a couple of the things that you loved besides the convenience of being able to walk to the park?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knows it's all about location there, but you're really like a 10-minute walk to the Magic Kingdom, and that's the main reason a lot of people like this. Now, granted, I'm a contemporary guy. I would tend to say I like the aesthetics. I like 1971 Disney, and go figure that this Bay Lake Tower is kind of themed like that. The portraits on the wall and just general convenience was super super nice. I think that I enjoyed the I dare say I think I enjoyed this more so than the Poly, which has been my favorite, just from a I think aesthetics standpoint. Like I love Steakhouse 71 because it's like it's paying tribute to the history of like the building of the Magic Kingdom and the building of Walt Disney World. And this had similar vibes. I think the room layout was I I I was pleasantly surprised that it seemed bigger than it looked on paper, right?
Yeah.
So explain that, Lauren, because I mean, when you look at square footage, you're like a square footage, but you got there and it was like, oh, this isn't super tiny. I figured we'd be like one room cramped together, all the luggage on top of each other.
No, and I think these rooms were recently renovated, but the way that you walk in the door into, like, the way our room was facing to the right would have been the bathroom, and then normally in that same space, you have, like, a kitchenette. Well, in this layout, you walked a little bit further down the hall and off to, like, the right-hand side, they actually had the kitchen built in, so it would have been like there'd been a wall between the bathroom and the kitchen. And I think that that probably helped with the layout of the room. It
Yeah.
was, open and spacious. It was like the Poly where the beds are raised, where you could put your luggage underneath. There were benches and things that, like, you didn't feel like the room was cramped. And I personally like the beds that come out of the wall. And so then you have that big open
Yep.
space. I thought maybe you were going to be disappointed with the view because it wasn't
No.
facing the, castle, it was facing the backside of the Contemporary
And the pool, you
and
got a pool
the
and a
pool
contemporary.
and the lake, and you were jazzed about the view,
I was
right?
listen because I am a like I get a park view. I've seen Magic Kingdom. It would have been cool to kind of see the castle and stuff like that. But I love the contemporary just as much, man. Like just to be like waking up and seeing a contemporary to me is like amazing. Like I just love that. I like that vibe. So it was super pleasant. We were lucky. Now this did play that if you want to fill up your refillable mugs and stuff like that, there is no like kitchen or station at the actual Bay Lake. You have to make it across over to the Contemporary. So they're on the fifth floor. There is a walking path, like tunnel, like bridge that you go. We were right next to the elevators and we're on the fourth floor. So we went up like one elevator and walk across, and it was very easy access to all the shops and everything. Dare I say, might have been easier than if you were in the Contemporary and had to use their
Yeah.
elevator system. So I imagine if you're on far ends of different things, it could have been different. But little tip also, I buy a refillable mug every time we go to a park. I bought one in Vero and I asked them, will it work? And it surely did. So that $22 refillable mug, we filled about 25 times. So, I mean, that is a pretty good value. And we filled it at Vero, and we also filled it here at the Bay Lake or the Contemporary many, many, many times.
Yeah, and a couple other things that we really enjoyed, the little extras, watching the fireworks at the top of Bay Lake.
Yeah.
That is a separate viewing area. And we also, one night we got back from the parks and the electric, what is it called? Is it called the electrical light
Yeah.
pageant?
No, water pageant. Yeah.
Water pageant, I'm sorry, yeah. But that was going off and, like, we could watch it right from our room, which was pretty, I thought, incredible, like, you were nerding out, about that. So, big fans of the Contemporary, and now moving on to being at the park in the summer. We knew that this was gonna be a laid back trip. We don't tour like probably typical folks, especially in the summer, because we're like, we'll go and maybe do a couple rides, we rope drop. And then when we get hot or it gets, uncomfortable, then we'll swim and go back in the evening and eat. But what did you think about the crowds or the heat last week?
I thought the crowds were pretty reasonable considering that it's summertime and you normally say, well, everybody's out. So I do think the crowd levels were to the point where if you got to the park super early, you got a bunch of stuff done. Midday still became, miserable like always because it's super hot and everybody's in the park and so forth. Nighttime seemed to be fine. I think I did not have to use cooling towels or fans. I think once you've been there enough, you know exactly how to plan your day to get in and out of buildings to keep yourself nice and cool. I felt myself starting to get a heat rash one day, and I'm like, well, we're going to be in and out. Like, I found every shaded area you could. And if I was walking down a street, it was going to be walking through a shop as opposed. So I think Disney just does a great job there. It wasn't dead, so it wasn't a matter of, the heat made everybody go away. But I was not super concerned, but that does affect how we tour the parks in general. A couple things for me, just in saying, hey, Walt Disney World, a few things that I thought were great. I think Rock and Roller Coaster is a huge upgrade. I enjoyed that. I think the animation courtyard was a slight letdown. So those are my key takeaways. Like I expected it to be, I don't know, more maybe my hopes and dreams that there were more Easter eggs and stuff there. But when I saw it, I'm like, oh, okay, it is just a courtyard with a couple the statues. So those were a couple elements, but I think Rock and Roller Coaster was a huge upgrade and really enjoyed that. But that was
And
everything else about the same.
yeah, and we also did a show maybe a couple months ago about the most underrated attractions, and everybody was talking about the American Adventure,
Oh, okay.
and America's 250. We did go and do that, and normally I don't. I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but I take a little nappy because it is very cold in there, and you've been
Yeah.
walking, and you're walking on the surface of the sun, going through the World Showcase, but it was a wonderful, wonderful show. I could really appreciate it. And so good on you, the fan community, for making that recommendation. A couple of things that I also really loved. We went during VIP pass holder days and we were able to get some really awesome discounts on food. So it was a 40% off discount, and we ate at the beer garden,
Hmm.
which is in Germany. If you're not familiar, I think we've talked about it before. It is one of our favorites. And I feel like for the price, even without the discount, the amazing entertainment that is
Yeah.
provided. is worth the cost.
Yeah, with beer garden, I mean, I think there was a moment during my trip, if I had to say my favorite moment, I was eating whatever dessert that had some type of apple and like apple filling. And we got the guys playing the Ricola horns and we're playing the bells, and I'm just eating this dessert. It was it's a pricey meal, don't get me wrong, because it is like a character meal, but that 40% was making it so much easier to get the credit card out and pay. There were a couple that we did. I think we also did Coral Reef, which actually turned out to be really good, but most people aren't going to be able to do that because that's closing, I think, in September.
Yeah, and on the Disney Dish podcast, we were listening to it on the way home. They had said that they're thinking that it's just going to open seasonally. And
Yeah.
so it's not down thinking that they're going to do like a big refurb or change the menu, that it's just going to pop up occasionally when they need the capacity. Because I think Len said that dining is down 21% because you're choosing between dining and lightning lanes. If you've not listened to that, that was a really interesting take. So I was happy to get it in. The food was really good. We had eaten there several times before, and I'm like, this is terrible. It was terrible service. It was terrible food. I'm like, I'm never coming back here. And so, spur of the moment, we decided to do it, and I'm really, really glad that we did. And we also had Olivia's. The food not so hot this time, I don't think, but we also ate beer garden for lunch, and so we
Yeah.
weren't like super hungry. But anyways, it was an enjoyable trip. I am a fan person, so I recommend taking your fan if you're
Yeah.
gonna go in the summer. But as long as you know how to do the parks, it was still really enjoyable experience at Disney. And then we did the back half of our trip and we headed over to Universal Studios. We got to do it. Erica's podcast. It's
Yeah. No,
part of
listen,
the
that's
gig, right?
that's part of the deal. You can call yourself a Disney podcast, but deep down inside, you are still, somewhat a Universal podcast because they kind of force each other to do things. So we stayed over at the Terra Luna, and it was our second time staying there. We stayed there for a couple of days, and I mean, earlier thoughts, like I don't think it's that much of a downgrade compared to Grand Helios. In this case, I feel like the rooms are very similar. The vibes are very similar. One thing that I will note, I think I said on a previous podcast, I thought it didn't take that long to get to City Walk from Terra Luna via the bus. This time around, a little different because I don't, you start at the Terra Luna and then you have to go to the Stella Nova to pick people up. So it's kind of like that old All-Star bus sharing situation.
Yeah.
And it just seemed like it was a lot longer to get to City Walk
It
this
was
time
not,
around.
but I wonder if it's a capacity issue. Like, so if they don't have enough people to justify both buses
Yeah,
running,
yeah,
we got this room for $115 a night, which is bananas. And something I noticed because we are pass holders for Universal too, that you would get like a 15% off at Epic, but over the summer months, they were offering 40% off of Epic. Like, so you got your 15 plus the additional discount. So I'm wondering if that's why they were only running one bus.
yeah. I don't know. Either way, it was fine by me. We did this we got there on a Thursday night and head over to I did ET. I remember doing that because that's like what we do. Go see Botanicus and we help ET save the freaking green planet. Then we did it on a Friday and a Saturday. So I guess it's hard to gauge the crowds of a Universal park. I was hoping Universal would be like dead in many aspects just because of the summer crowds and the discounts that they're trying to try to bring people in and stuff like that. It still seemed pretty busy. I mean, we were there on a Saturday and on Islands of Adventure, and it was one of those things where just like, all right, wait times are going to go down.
It was
Wait times are going to go down.
miserable.
And it didn't go down. And you guys ended up sitting in like the comic strip cafe for like 2 hours while we kind of did some rides here and
Yeah, I
there.
mean, we did I like the Doctor Cat in the Hat and the,
Yeah,
trolley, and that was the extent of what we did, but, like, again, I'm not, like, a huge, coaster person,
you're
but
not
we
a
get
rider.
went. Yeah, yeah, but we did do a lot of shopping, got a
Yeah. Oh, God.
lot of a lot of Universal merch.
Yeah, lots of Universal merch. They have better deals than anywhere else. I will tell you that. You went to the Brown Derby, which is a annual pass holder, and like everything's 70% off. So you did a haul and actually showcased the entire bus your haul on the way home. Everybody's watching. So I'm sure anybody wants to hear more, I'm sure there'll be something on I Want That Too, where you'll talk about some of your great finds. But overall, Universal is
Yes.
fine. We did not do Epic. So, it is a different story. If they would have opened it up to annual pass holders, sure, we would have done Epic. But right now, we did Proper and we did Islands of Adventure. And it was a fine little trip. It was hot and
But I have to say though, like as we're wrapping up here, the reason we moved because we were supposed to do the whole trip at Disney was that Terra Luna and Stella Nova have really amazing pools. They have amazing pools with they had a DJ, they have a large hot tub if you're sore from walking around the theme parks, but 0 entry and multiple places. They have, like, the pool and, like, all of the things, and so we knew that we were probably gonna have some midday breaks,
yeah.
and so I just have to mention, if a pool matters to you, I think that there are only a handful of resorts on Universal property that have hot tubs.
There you go. So she's a hot tubber. I was, on the other hand, on a computer working in the lobby, trying to get podcasts uploaded because that's what we do. But overall, the my lasting trip report, like I was looking at this to see if the summer heat would cause the crowds to be down or if it's smart to go because over the last couple of years we've gone in the summertime in July. And I would say that I do feel like the crowds are lower. It wasn't like when we were at Disney during Easter break or whatever when
Oh,
that was just
it was
like you
awful.
couldn't do anything. There are obviously still going to be times that things are going to be busy. um I would say yes, consider, but here's my rationale is you can't travel and you can't really do the parks in the heat like you would if you weren't. You're just physically not capable of going as hard, going as long. You need to take more breaks. So, although it's a little less busy and maybe the ride will be down, you need to have breaks built in. So, you still will probably get about the same amount of stuff done. So, if not, you'll be exhausted. You won't be able to move the next day. So, I don't think it's a great hack to go in the summer because, yeah, you might not wait in line for an extra 15, 20 minutes, but you're going to have to go sit down for 15, 20 minutes or travel back to the hotel and so forth. So maybe there's a little bit more sitting as opposed to waiting in line, but I don't know if it's a giant hack. You'll still get to do about the same stuff as I witnessed. We pretty much did about the same stuff if it was like a fall trip.
Yeah, but I think that, something that doesn't get considered, especially if you don't go to the parks all the time, is there are wonderful shows. Wonderful shows. Like the Villains show at Hollywood Studios is one of my favorites. Like I said, we did the American Adventure. There's, the Nemo show or Lion King at Animal Kingdom. Like, so there's just a lot of indoor options that I think if you took advantage of that, then like
Yeah,
regulate your body temperature
sure.
a little bit, and then you can get back out and, hit the parks. The first time we went, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like, "We will never be back in the summer." It was an August trip and it was just especially brutal. And then the next year, last year we went in July, and this year in July. And these last two have been fine, but we also know how to do them. And I will say, at Universal, the first day that we were there, we did do Universal the entire day. Like, we didn't take a midday break.
Yeah.
It looked like it was going to rain. It got real gray, real dark, and it ended up being like 70 something, not 70 degrees, but it was cool, actually. Like, I could have wore a Spirit jersey and been comfortable. So, that was the exception, certainly not the rule. But I think, anytime you go besides the week of Easter or Christmas or those wild times, you can make it work.
Yeah, no, we made it work. I thought it was an enjoyable trip. Enjoyed from the moment we stepped into Vero to the moment we left Islands of Adventure. All types of fun stuff. So I think it all comes down to we just gave you a little trip report. It was pretty much a show and a
Yeah.
half here. We went over our 30-minute allotted time to give you a trip report. But that's what we want to know from you really is, do you enjoy trip reports? Is this something that we should continue to do, or do you want us to push it out even further on a Jim Hill Media Network? We're not going to send out those Disney or Universal surveys, but you can tell us in the comments and or you can email us directly what's your thoughts. And if there's enough of you that feel that this is something relevant, we will push it forward.
All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode and a half of Diz and Hers. For more, head over to disandhers.com. There you'll find articles, episodes, and updates. And if Disney is your vibe, make sure to subscribe.
And remember, watch what you post. You might end up in next week's episode. Hey, thanks for listening.